Merry meet, everybody, and bright blessings. I'm Lady Leeanna with another edition of Wicca for today. And today we're going to talk about a subject that's very near and dear to my heart. Why is it near and dear to my heart, you asked? Well, until last year, I never really got to acquire any of my own pagan altar tools because I practiced as a high priestess in a covenant or large group all the time. And in those groups, you generally have group tools, none of your own unless you practice outside of that. And I just stayed busy. Whenever I did practice solitarily, then I would use regular household tools around the house. A few times I did acquire a thing or two in altar tools, but I always sent it out the door with other people I cared about or felt that the item called to that person more than me, or vice versa. And you know, basically, I just kind of didn't do so. And last year, I got mine in just before the Hunter's Moon, which, as fate would have it, it was a good thing because I was able to cleanse them and anoint them unto myself right before the Hunter's Moon and get them outside so that they could face all 3 nights of the full moon within that time. And it made them very, very powerful, especially since it rained and had a lot of lightning going on out there, you know, during the Hunter's Moon, the exact night of the Hunter's Moon. In fact, my chalice was sitting out there too, and it filled it all but 1/4 of an inch from the top. And I had been sick real bad with my bronchitis that year from the prior years of smoking before I quit. And it had really gotten me big time. But I found the chalice of water sitting out there, and I began to drink it, and it sent chills and tingles all throughout my body. And it actually made me feel very well. Well, I went through a bunch of testing at a doctor's office not long after that, and they really couldn't find a lot more wrong with me at that point. I feel that it had a big contribution in my healing from all of that, and my breathing has gotten a lot better. I quit smoking 2 years ago, and so a year ago when I drank this water, I feel that it just kind of renewed my life again and helped to heal me. So, you know, storms, full moons, the big of the Hunter's Moon, all of this together, very powerful, bigger than all of us together. Anyway, so today we're going to talk about altar tools, but not just. We're going to talk about the corresponding colors as well as the directions and the colors to the directions, which would be the same. Anyway, so let's start with the north, which would be represented by green or brown. Those are the 2 colors that represent the north. And the north really is the only direction that has 2 colors that represent it. So, green and brown to the north. And I'm going to talk about my most important tool to the north. This would be the symbol of my faith, the pentagram. Not everybody is the same, and you may use a triquetra, a tricopolis, a Christian cross, a Celtic cross, a buffalo, a deer, a bear, a dragon, or whatever. Everybody is different. But the best thing that you could have your symbol on is a plaque, because you don't use that in any of the other directions. And you don't want something with your symbol on it in the north and then have the same thing in another direction. So your plaque would be a very good thing. or even a hot plate, something that you would find useful within the circle for you. Okay. Also, along with my pentagram is my tiger's eye stone that I use in the heart of my pentagram plaque. Now, the wood of my plaque don't hold energy as much as a stone or a metal would. And so I have this that couples with my pentagram and sits right directly in the center of it. And eventually I'll embed it into it probably. But stones are an earth element and would reside in the north likewise. Would be represented by green or brown, just like the pentagram plaque would and north would. But my tiger's eye stone, it's important to me also that it is tiger's eye. It's my favorite stone, and it's the seeing, it's vision, it's clarity. It's a stone of sight, and I'm a psychic by nature, and I use this within my business. That's what my business is based around. And so this stone is what I chose to be mine. I also have a necklace that I wear in my circle with tiger's eye in it that connects with that. Anyway, so your pentagram plaque and your stone, your crystals, your stones, all of those would be a earth element and would reside in the north. So that's pretty kosher. Now, most of your herbs would be a north thing. It would be things that would reside in the north. This happens to be desert sage, which is for cleansing and purification, you know. And whenever I burn it in an incense burner, it becomes air. It is made into an air element by its use, and therefore would then go to that. But most of your herbs would reside in the north. Now, you also have a few herbs that would go into the south. That would be your hot herbs, like hot peppers, dried hot peppers, or any other hot and peppery type spicy herbs, and stinging herbs. Those would reside in the south. And so you would have those there. Let's see. In the north also, we have a candle holder. Candle holders reside in the north on the basis that they're a stable ground and hold something as a base, as a foundation. It holds my candles. Mine happens to also be an oak leaf. Very beautiful candle holders, if you ask me. And so, definitely north. The fact that it's an oak leaf actually helps. And I don't always suggest people to have iron in their altar just for holding candles, because they do hold a lot of power and energy. I do, because I have enough energy to go around with my altar, and I've been doing this so long that, you know, that it helps to house a lot of my excess energy and would be usable on times where I might not be as empowered myself. And I could use the energy out of my tools and into whatever talisman or whatever I'd be making for somebody, or charm. But your candle holders, they would generally go into the north, or not necessarily go into the north, but they would be a tool of the north. Let's see. Also, your essential oils. They're extracts of herbs. Naturally, it goes without saying. They would be represented by green and brown, would be a tool of the north likewise. Okay. Let's see. And your mortar and pestle. Your mortar and pestle would be an herb grinding tool. It houses herbs, not water or anything like that. And anything that usually goes for something particular that is a north, south, east, or west thing, it becomes the same as it. Like your incense burner would be an air item. But this is an herb item. And a wooden one, which I don't really feel is mine. It's been with me a long time. It's got a lot of power in it, but mine is going to be a marble mortar and pestle set. And so this one I'll probably give away on the show later on a different show, to somebody, you know, for some kind of a special thing, you know, and along with a few other things. I have a few things in mind, but haven't quite put it together yet, to tell you the truth. But giving it away to somebody, and it's old, you know, but that's the mystique of it, isn't it? You know, so be looking forward to that. Anyway, that's your North tools, except for the lady, your deities. This is the moon goddess Diane and her stag. It's a beautiful piece, isn't it? Anyway, your deities would generally reside in the north because they are your nurturers, your mother typically. Now, your god Cornunus can reside in the north, but I feel kind of weird about that, considering your feminine is your nurturer, and your masculine is your hunter and protector. To me, he should reside more in the south, but other people would disagree with this. Everybody's different. This is Cornunus, or some people call him Cernunnos. He is the god on my altar, and I put him sometimes in the north with Diana, and sometimes in the south. I feel that your south is more of a political place, a place of strength to do more with battle and fire. And your north is more of a place for nurturing and healing and so forth. But you can pick and choose that for the most part. In today's society, you could choose as to whether you want him to stand in the north with your female deity, or if you want him to stand on opposite sides. Me, I think that he is more of your sword wielder, your protector, and that is your south. Your tools of the south are your blades and your black-handled knife, your athame, your sword, all of that, your fire. And in the north is more your ground, your herb of healing, your nurturing effects, your mothering position. And so, you know, it's up to you to pick and choose how you feel about that. Likewise, you may find that the north is more religious, where the south is more political, although they both contain aspects of the opposite likewise, you know. Anyway, so let's talk about the south and the things that belong therein. I've already shown you Cornunus, Cernunnos, whichever you prefer to call him, a warrior, a hunter, generally a hunter for the most part, but your god is generally more your war, your place, but that's not always the truth, is it? Because you have a lot of female warriors likewise. And so, you know, it depends on your faith and where you feel things should be. But anyway, in the south, it's represented by red, only one color. Red, fire. Fire is the element of the south. The deep south, says little Nikki. Anyway, in the south I have what would be my black-handled knife. Now, what's this, you might say? Well, it's actually a silver-handled knife, but a black-handled pair of scissors. What's the difference? In today's date, you know, why not have a black-handled pair of scissors and a black-handled knife or a silver-handled knife, whatever you might want? You know, because, you know, This drew to me for a particular reason, and I've just had it there ever since as my black-handled knife. But these are my black-handled knife likewise. See, the scissors do with paper what a knife can't. And a knife does with herbs, what a pair of scissors can't. We have the athame. Mine has the triple moon goddess aspect on it, but it's still the phallic symbol of the male god. It's a representation of the male genitalia, and it has a little bit of the goddess on it, but it represents the masculine attributes, and it rests within the south, and it would be used for drawing down the moon, casting up the walls in your temple, erecting the temple, and so forth. But in your ceremonies, it couples with your chalice and represents the masculine contribution of consummation, where the chalice represents the womb, the vagina, the feminine. And we'll cover that more in a minute. However, this is my symbol of the masculine attribute, and it rests within the south. Also now, you have your lighter. I use this particular lighter because I can reach anywhere across my altar and do whatever I want without stretching and bending and all of that. And it's definitely fire, as with your matches and as with your candles. All of this is representative of fire, or is represented by fire, and the color red. Now you could say your incense burning is fire, but it's not. And it's also got herbs in it. It could be north herbs, but it's not. It is air. Why? Because you're sensing the air with smoke. You're carrying your prayers on air. And so your sense would be air. And we'll go more into that here in a minute. Nonetheless, this would be your fire tools. Your blades. Your black-handled knife is what these two take the place of with me. Your athame. Definitely the south, definitely red, definitely fire, as well as any sword you may have. Let's see, your lighter, or matches, if you have them, and your candles, because that's what they do. They light the place with fire. Okay, they also do many other things, your candles, but well, that's for another show. Anyway, so my tools in the south, I love them. They're very strong power tools, as are my mother tools, my north tools, the pentagram plaque and everything that goes with that. One is more political, that would be your south, and one is more passive, religious, which would be your north. One would be more effeminate, although your masculine or feminine deities could rest within the north. Or you could have your feminine resting in the north and your masculine resting in the south. And that's why. Because the male is more of your battler, your warrior, and actually your hunter too. But you know, also you have females that fight and act as warriors and hunters likewise. So I mean, either way you want to do it. It depends really on you and what you feel strongest about. That's what it all boils down to. Don't be afraid of being a little bit creative, because your religion is what you're making it to be. You're shaping it and forming it. And yes, you want to hold to a lot of the oldest aspects that you can come up with, the oldest concept and ideas. But you do want to put a little bit of yourself in there, and you shouldn't be afraid to do that at all. Okay? Nonetheless, you know, let's go ahead and move on to the West, since we've touched upon one of the tools within the West, as is the chalice. And here we have a Mother, Maiden, and Crone chalice. And if you'll look closely, you'll notice that there's 3 faces of the goddess in here. You have the oldest face that represents the crone. You have a very young face that represents the maiden. And you have another face which, well, I guess that's the crone. But you have Mother, Maiden, and Crone on this particular chalice. That being the crone, that being the mother, and that being the maid. And it represents the womb, the vagina, the feminine parts. It's attributed to love and associated with the color blue. Blue is your color to the West and should be held in that regard. Water, love, blue, West. Always remember that. Now, the tools that go with that is your libation dish. Things you pour to the earth, generally the fluid from your libation, whatever it may be, and then placed inside the bowl. And then later, after the ceremony, any herbs that you might have left over out of your burning dish would go in there, and any other scraps of paper or whatnot. And then you would give this to the earth after your ceremony. For all that we take, do we ever give back? And you have to remember that as a good pagan. No matter what path you're on, always remember that. Now, another object of the West is your cauldron. Here is my mini tiny cauldron. I actually have one that's a foot off the ground and about a foot across. It's really big, really deep. And these in the old days were made to boil things. And so they are water. They are West. They are blue. Your cauldrons represent the West and are blue. Let's see. Likewise, I have this little dish which is shaped like a chalice, but it was an old incense burner that had the little top on it. I use it for a holy water making dish. And I've got my consecrated salts in here right now. But I make my holy water in this, and so it would be a water vessel. It would be a West item, and it resides within the West, okay, and is associated with blue. And a seashell. I use this particular baby for an anointing dish. You know, like whenever I did that Hunter's Moon ritual to make my tools my own, I took a little anointing oil and I clipped a little bit of my hair and sprinkled it around in there. And I let it sit for about 24 hours and let the DNA from my hair get all into the oil. And then I anointed each of my tools with it to make it my own. And it's a good idea for you to use to appoint your tools to yourself. And then I put them out there for the 3 nights of the Hunter's Moon, bring them in the daytime so that the sun doesn't conflict with what I was trying to do. So there's a little knowledge for you for doing a ritual appointing your tools to yourself. And you would actually do it on an altar and sit around with your tools or a tool if you're doing just one tool at a time, and make sure you pick. It can be any full moon, but the Hunter's Moon was very powerful for me. And it was a thunderstorm night that night with a lot of electrical energy, so amazing. And I had a lot of great effects. I'm just so excited about that. And these tools are very, very powerful, y'all, let me tell you. Okay, so we've covered the north, the south, the north being green and brown, the south being red, and the west, we've covered the tools as far as west goes, being blue. Now, you know, there are other things that you could have on your altar, but these are your predominant tools that you're going to find not much more than this on a witch's altar, let me tell you. As far as big items, these are your biggest items and most of your little items. And so we've covered a good amount of ground with this. And now we're going to move on to air. Air is a very important space. And a lot of people just kind of overlook air a lot of the times. You know, but it's a very, very powerful thing. Look at hurricanes. Look at tornadoes. Okay, and what air can really do. Alright, well, the most important tool in air is your wand. Alright? And it is represented by the color yellow. This wand is 16 inches long, is made out of ebony wood, and is sanded smooth. It's about 1/4 of an inch at its widest point, thick, and it's a beautiful wand. I mean, let me tell you. And it's been great. You don't want anything much larger than this, and you don't want anything much smaller. You want it to hold power and a good amount of it, but you don't want it to hog up the space on your altar, for sure. So it's perfect, you know. Anyway, your wand, attributed to air, and is air, yellow. Okay? So, pay homage to that in that regard. And then we have a rattle, an air tool. Why is a rattle air tool when it's made out of wood? Well, its sound carries through the air. You hear it by that. The beads, they rattle through air to help make the sound. And also, it's to call energy up out of something for the most part. Like if there's a bad energy in someone and I'm doing a cleansing on them, I generally would take this and a feather and move the air over their body to call up that energy so that I can, after it's called out, expel it, cast it out, send it into the earth so that it could be cleansed away. You know, and so the rattle as well as the feather are air tools. Okay, and I didn't bring a feather, otherwise I would use that for you, but we really don't need it. You know what a feather looks like. Okay, next, a bell. A bell is an air tool. Something, again, is moving through the air in the inside, and it's carrying sound on air. Now, generally, a bell on your altar is used to summon spirits, or is used to assemble your covenant or congregation together so that you can begin the ceremony. Anyway, that is what your bell is used for within your altar. And you may also use a bell to call up energy out of something if you wanted to. But I have my rattle, so I don't need to. And let's see. Alright, your incense burner. Now, as I said, that the herbs would be lit on fire, so let's not stand on technicality. It's not a fire thing. It's not being used as a fire thing. And, you know, it's got herb in it, which you could say is the north, but it's not being used for north. The prayers, as well as the smell, and the consecration is to do of air. Consecrating the air around you, around your temple. Sending your prayers on air. Let them be heard. And so on. It's an air tool. The herbs inside of them are being used as an air tool. So they're an air tool. That would go the same to do with the sage smudge wand, even if you don't have a dish. Your sage is still going to be an air tool. Okay? No matter that it's all herb. That smells so good. And so strong. So that would be your air tools. Your wand. Remember, your staff is also an air tool. Any drums are an air tool, believe it or not. Let's see, your bells, your senses, your incense, those are all air. And they're all represented by the color yellow. Always remember that. Now here's an idea for you. Tips from Lady Leeanna. Okay, I took satin of all the 4 colors to the direction. Green satin, yellow satin, blue satin, and red satin. And I made pouches and slide-in bags for each of my tools with full closures that wrapped around enough to actually envelop it completely. I actually made sachets out of it and slid them in and put all kinds of stuff on there to help hold that energy in. And there's a tip for you. I used a sewing machine. You could also do this by hand, or you could have these things made. It doesn't take anything. But satin and silk, they don't breathe as well as other materials. And so they're very good in holding in energies. And that's why I use these 2 types of cloth. Satin is the best in my opinion, although a lot of people will tell you silk. Alright, I made a green sachet for my pentagram plaque, a yellow elongated sachet to slide my wand into, and all of the other ones as well. All my littler tools I just kind of wrap in a white cloth, a satin cloth likewise. You know, and I've even made little pouches for some of those, but not complete yet. Anyway, so if you have a sewing machine, there's a good tip for you. Satin does not cost all that much. Not your standard Walmart shelf satins, okay, which are just as good, really. Anyway, so there's a tip for you. Make a sachet wrap for each of your items and correspond that to the colors that they belong in, or the directions that they belong in, and corresponding to that color, whatever. But there's a good idea for you. Anyway, this has been another edition of Wicca for Today with Lady Leeanna. Take care of yourself, everybody, and look for another edition of Wicca for Today. And merry part. Bye-bye.